The Washington Backcountry Discovery Route, more commonly referred to as the Washington BDR, is an almost 700-mile off-road route traversing Washington from the Oregon border to Canada. The BDR is popular with overlanders and adventure riders. There are 6 sections in the Washington variant. Today, we're focusing on Section 4. Section 4 runs from Cashmere to Lake Chelan, 104 miles of beautiful views above the Wenatchee Valley, Entiat Valley, and finally Lake Chelan. Some highlights include Chumstick Mountain, Tillicum Lookout, Slide Ridge, as well as an optional hard route named the Jungle, which you can choose to tackle before dropping into 25 Mile Creek. Last year, in 2025, the Lower Sugarloaf Fire burned about 43,000 acres of forest. At the cost of an estimated $85 million, this fire started in late August and burned until the winter snow arrived. Lightning caused the fire near Sugarloaf Lookout, and following the footprint of fires before, it worked its way southeast until much of the Entiat Mountains had burned. But now, winter is past and the fires are out, at least for now. However, cleanup efforts are seemingly just beginning. Tillicum Road, the main route to Ardmore, is being heavily logged and it's closed. Unfortunately, this is part of the BDR, and more unfortunately, there are almost no accessible bypasses nearby. Most of the roads go out a ways and dead end, and are blocked by logging, or are too far away from the BDR to consider a valid bypass. There is one road though, although in hindsight, road might be a bit generous. I knew from scouting that the approach from the east was blocked here, with a couple large trees across the road. Some more scouting revealed an approach from the west was blocked about a mile away. I didn't have the time to hike it, so any obstacles between would remain a mystery. I made my pitch to Seth, and he was in. Unfortunately, due to scheduling, we only had one day in the next couple weeks, and the weather report was calling for wind. Generally, wind is just an annoyance, but in a recently burned forest, the wind can be much more than just irritating. We agreed to be cautious and take a chance on it. Since I had decided to film this trip, I immediately had armchair safety nerds yelling in the back of my head. I ignored most of it, but I did get a permit to cut firewood. We would be permitted to carry 12 cords of firewood back with us, should we choose. Some of you should also go outside and find some nature, and touch it, like grass. You could find some grass and feel it with your hands. Just touch it. Anyway, with most of the bases covered, we go set up, strapped everything down the best we could, and hit the road. The trip up consisted of what you'd expect. Train crossings, fuel for $6 a gallon, fuel for the saw, checking our tie downs, twisty pavement, and eventually dirt. More checking of tie downs, breakfast, traffic. Believe it or not, they did not ask to see my firewood permit. We took the most direct route I knew of to get there, which meant cutting a few corners on single track. At the base of Chumstick Mountain, it seemed wrong to pass without visiting the summit. This is where we found the wind. I almost dropped the bike here, for no reason. I will blame the wind and the chainsaw. After the wind and chainsaw made me almost drop my bike, we continued on our journey. This is where we start seeing signs of the fire. Firefighters, logging, flooding, fires, and wind have taken their toll. Some sections of the trail are worse than others, and the entire route is nearly unrecognizable to me. Eventually, we reach our destination and are immediately greeted with obstacles. There would be a lot of obstacles today. I didn't want to detach the chainsaw from the bike until it was necessary, as tying it down was time-consuming. Using handsaws, we made a path wide enough to get the bikes through. This was an old road, maybe a logging road, maybe Forest Service. Either way, it was overgrown, and nothing with 4 wheels had been down it in years. A few small trees were down, but they were easy to ride over. I wanted to save our fuel, time, and energy for the impassable obstacles. I figured you could spend days out here clearing brush and deadfall from the path, but we weren't trying to drive a Jeep down, we just needed to get the bikes through. Many areas resembled single track, and we learned later that there was no way anything bigger than a bike was getting through anyway, unless it was a bulldozer. Finally, we made it to the first obstacle, got the saw running, and began removing limbs. It was not a large tree, but it was a height which prevented you from going under or over. Seth made quick work of it, and began hiking down to look for the next obstacle. I moved the log, cleared the limbs, and made my way further down the trail, where I found Seth already cutting on the next obstacle. a large burnt tree. We rolled the log out of the road, and Seth went back to grab the T-dub while I secured the saw to the bike. Seth caught up, and we continued down. We were in a bit of a valley, and so far it was well protected from the wind. Another obstacle, and then another, small enough to move by hand. Rocks, brush, another tree down. This one we could have ridden around, but it didn't seem right. We pushed it aside, cleared the brush, and rode 20 feet to the next stop. Things continued like this for a bit. Eventually the trees started to open up, and I knew we were getting close to the last big obstruction. But we wouldn't get there without more cutting. This time it was a tree. A burned tree. A fallen burnt tree. A surprise for sure. Seth cut, I filmed and cleared. I noticed it was starting to get windy where we were. I didn't like how the burnt trees on the hill were angled towards Seth, but he was almost done, I thought. The saw was stuck. I climbed up and used all my weight to bounce the log, trying to free the saw blade, and hoping I didn't slip and impale myself on a tree branch. Unfortunately, I didn't weigh enough. Eventually, frustration and impatience paid off, and the saw came free. Another minute of cutting, and we were clear. Move the limbs, move the logs, secure the saw, carry on. At a split in the road, I waited for Seth. I was pretty sure it was just up around the ridge and we'd be there. This was about the time I realized no vehicles would be coming down here anytime soon to clear this path. This bypass for the BDR would be bikes only. Otherwise, it was a perfect route for adventure bikes. Not too hard, not too easy. Minimal exposure, but enough technicality to really make you feel like the best adventure rider that ever lived. We had made it. The final boss, 3 trees blocking the road, 2 large ones stacked together, in a really beautiful area. It was more of the same. After a nice long break, we loaded up and set out to see what the logging area looked like from the east. The fuel can kept working its way free from its shackles, and this wouldn't be the last time we had to stop and secure it. They make fuel canisters require 4 hands to get the fuel to come out, because safety, but then they put no viable attachment points on the canister anywhere. What's up with that? On the last turn before getting back on the BDR, there's a lone tree surrounded by charcoal. I stopped here on my scouting trip to take a picture. It was a unique sight that resonated with me. It was also a bit of an indicator of what was to come. From the top of Roaring Ridge, you couldn't tell how bad it was about to get. It was only when we began descending into the valley that the damage became apparent. Occasionally, the road would work its way out of the burn zone, and we would see some green again. But it always turned black again. We reached the logging area. The wind was stirring up dust devils from the barren forest floor. Logging equipment was blocking the road ahead. From previous conversations with the loggers, I knew they didn't want traffic passing through. We turned around and backtracked our way out. Luckily, the fire had left the water bars untouched, and we still had some fun jumps to hit. My bike was not sprung for all the crap I had in the side bags or the chainsaw, and by the end of the day, my license plate was bent out of shape from the rear compressing too much. It was worth it though. Eventually, we made our way back up out of the burnt forest and back to our little bypass we had created. You probably got the impression from the footage that this is not the cleanest bypass. You're kind of right, but it's not as bad as I made it look. Sure, it's not a fire road, it's not well maintained, but the biggest concerns are mostly pine cones, some sticks, these 2 rocks, these other pine cones, and a tree or 2. We even cut this one out of the way, even though it was traversable, and even though the wind was getting pretty bad. You're welcome. We made it back to the BDR, stopped for a picture, passed Chumstick Mountain, survived the wind, and decided we had energy for one more small adventure. Armed with our chainsaw, we decided to give this single track section a go. I had already seen tracks coming out of it, so I was pretty confident it would be clear. The only real obstacle was all these flowers. Look at the flowers. This doesn't add much to the narrative, but it was really fun. After spending the day in a burnt forest in the windstorm, this was a nice way to finish the day. Lush green spring growth, easy riding, and pleasant sights all around. The trail eventually came to an end. We made our way back out of the hills, back through the twisties, and back home. Another day survived, and a new route opened up, hopefully for the season.